Hi, I'm Jennifer Carter, and thank you for joining me on a podcast for parents, teachers, and administrators. Today's conversation should be a good one, and I'm sure it's something on your mind. So let's get to it.
All right. Well, Jennifer, thank you so much for having me here today. And as an educator, I see that financial literacy is still not being taught in school. And I don't see, even here in 2020, I find it very interesting that we're not teaching financial literacy to our children. Mm-hmm. I'd like to get your philosophy on that. As a classroom teacher, my philosophy was what you learn is what you earn. So I'd like to kind of get your feedback on what do you think about teaching financial literacy in the schools and maybe even at Oak Tree?
Well, here's an interesting thing. I'm not bad at math. I'm not going to say I'm good at math, but I enjoy math. I'm one of the few people who writes and speaks and stuff and also enjoys math. And the reason that is because my dad taught me about money. Mm-hmm. And then when I was I went to school in a district that's really similar to Inglewood where you teach. Mm-hmm. And they had a program where we got these like cardboard, like things that were like this tall and this wide, and you had to put a quarter in every week. And then once a quarter, like every, 4 times a year, we would take our card to a local bank and we would make a deposit. And they showed us how to like keep a check register. Back in the day, a check register.
Yes.
So they taught us how to keep a check register and taught us how to, accrue the money in our little cards. And then when we graduated from elementary school, they were our accounts, but when we graduated from elementary school, then we could close our accounts or whatever. And believe it or not, that account is where I put my money when I started working.
Awesome. So you still kept the account. That's great.
I did. Absolutely. I didn't close that account until I went to Peace Corps when I was 22 years old. And I started that account when I was literally in kindergarten.
Yes.
So I really feel like the earlier you get kids to understand their relationship with money doesn't have to be combative or difficult, or how do you raise your credit score? How do you save your money? When you make it simple and you integrate it in that's like a project-based learning approach, right? We had this project where we were filling this card and we took it and then we had this end result. By the time I got to 6th grade, I had like $600 or $300. It wasn't a lot.
Fabulous.
Yeah, but it was still.
But that's a lot for an elementary age child, and especially during that time, because I remember we would get a quarter as an allowance.
Right.
That was a lot of money. I relished that quarter, and I could go quarter, and I could buy a pickle. I could buy a candy bar. I think I might be aging myself now, but you know what? That was a lot of money.
That is hilarious. And you know what? Because I did buy a pickle. We would go to the corner store up on Noble and buy pickles. That's why I hate pickles, because I was buying a pickle with the other quarter that I didn't take to school. So I ate pickles like as long as I saved quarters.
Yeah, and that's so weird too that I know you grew up in Ohio and I grew up in Cleveland, Mississippi, maybe Cleveland, Ohio, and we called it the corner store too. And that's exactly right. We're going to the corner store and we're going to get our little knickknacks for the day, and it's only going to cost us a quarter.
Right.
And then there was the Y store. We had 2 stores in Cleveland, the corner store or Y store. And that's where we would go after school every single day.
That is hilarious.
And so this is what I'm saying too, because sometimes people think, oh, the children are too young. Oh, it's kindergarten, it's 1st grade. They're too young to learn financial literacy. Absolutely not. And they're not to learn, hey, you know what? Maybe as a profession, as a career, I might become a business owner. Let me introduce, I think it's okay to introduce entrepreneurship to 1st graders, to kindergartners.
Right. Right.
So what are your thoughts about that?
Well, again, I'm all about the experiences, right? That's why it's called meaningful assessment ready experiences, because the more you can have those experiences and the younger you can start having those experiences, it's your brain is meant for long-term thinking and learning. So you have to put that groove in your brain, like, this is my money groove. This is how money connects to math. This is how money connects to life. And the sooner you start on wearing that groove for that neural pathway to be developed, the better. And, this idea that kids can't understand money, I think, is a fallacy for, especially, I have to say, for Black and brown children. I think that poor children, believe it or not, I think they learn financial literacy earlier, because they're often faced with decisions that are economically tied, right? Yes. So, when you're poor, and that's transcends it upon, every race across the country. If you're poor and you can't buy food, you're like, well, I only have $50, so we can't do X, Y, Z. I think with Black and brown children, though, even when they come from households of middle class, they're almost shielded and protected from money, because so many of us have grown up with not necessarily a full understanding. We're not necessarily introduced to it in the way that other people are. Yes. And that's not, that's not anything I'm making up. I think that we could probably find a fair amount of research that talks about money literacy and financial literacy among Black, Hispanic, Asian, and white kids. Yes. So, I think we just kind of grow up with a little bit of I don't want to say fear, but maybe misconception about money. Yes. When you're middle class, money appears out of nowhere. Middle class or upper class, it appears out of nowhere, But I really think poor people and rich people, their kids learn what money means a lot sooner than most of us.
I would agree with that too, because I know that as a first grade teacher, I was sort of shocked. And this is when I just started, well, not that many years ago, but when I started,
a few years ago,
just a couple of years ago, I taught first grade. And you're so right. I think the children who had less were more aware of the children who had more. I don't think the children who had more resources and had everything they need, families could afford to buy them, the uniforms, the field trips, etc. I don't think they paid as much attention to lack and money, as much as some of the poor kids did. They knew they didn't have the same amount. Right. They knew they couldn't afford to be, to do this or to take on that activity. And I think that's why they came into uniforms and things like that, so we could do things to stop people seeing those distinctions, to sort of blot out those distinctions.
Right.
Yeah. But I think you hit on a very good point there, that there is certainly the rich, that divide between the rich and poor is far more obvious. Obvious. And I'm sorry, I'm having a tough time chatting today.
That's okay.
But anywho, I agree with you there.
Hey there. If you've gotten this far into the episode, chances are that you really like what you're listening. I'm going to ask you to press pause and share this particular episode with 5 people that you think would really enjoy listening to it. I'm also going to ask that you subscribe to our podcast so that you don't miss an episode. Thank you so much for listening, and now let's get back to the conversation.
So I guess my next question would be, how do we overcome these gaps? How do we overcome these divides? In a classroom setting where the poor kids may be feeling a little insecure.
Right.
Because, I noticed Susie has more than I do.
Right. I think sometimes that baggage belongs to adults, and, we forget that schools are a full community. And that means parents, teachers, administrators, like all the adults really get to influence what happens to the kids. Right. I make a comparison. It's like a cell with a nucleus with the kids at the center. and then you have the adult, you have the parents around it, and then the teachers, and then the admin, and then the district, and so on and so on. But to kind of mitigate some of that stuff, I think if we stop making a big deal about it, they will stop making a big deal about it. If we stop emphasizing, oh, you got to be clean and go to school wearing X, Y, and Z, then your kids are not going to think about that, or if you're saying your clothes are dirty or they're patched or whatever they are, if they're not nice, well, make sure you sit in the back, or don't let anybody know that you got your clothes at a thrift store. Like, those are that's adult baggage. And then unfortunately, just like many things in life, we foist that on kids, and then they're stuck trying to figure that out when they don't have the social and emotional tools to figure it out. Yeah. So I really think that's not, it is a problem that manifests with kids, but I don't necessarily know if you're going to fix that problem without recruiting adults as well. Exactly. You know what I mean?
I do. I know exactly what you mean. And I'm thinking of a case in point when I taught middle school here, in my district, and I had a conversation with an adult whose child was in my classroom. And I said to her, and I'm, very reluctant to refer a child for testing, but I was seeing some things that perhaps I said to the parent, you may want to have this checked out.
Right.
And it's early enough in elementary where we could make some changes and adapt to some things. And she said to me, I'm not willing to do that. And I said, well, why not? Why, we need to help. Let's help your baby. Let's help your child.
Right.
And she was concerned, Jennifer, about what will the community think? What will other parents think? And this is at, one of our, our well-to-do schools and affluent schools, if you will. And she was concerned about image more than, what's best for the child.
And so did she eventually get the help for the child?
No, she said she would not. She did not want to be embarrassed in that way.
Hearing that story makes me so disappointed.
I was so disappointed too. I said, well, maybe we can do it quietly. Maybe we can do it and we just don't mention it to anyone. She said, no, people have a way of knowing. People have a way of knowing. These things get out into the open. And honestly, that happened many years ago, but it left an impression on me.
Wow.
Yeah. And so how do we overcome that baggage with adults? Because there are some adults, that whole keeping up with the Joneses mentality. And it's like, that does come into play sometimes in the classroom.
Well, I have a little bit of a philosophy. I feel like you would never call a person a pejorative. Like, you wouldn't say a white person with a derogatory name, or you wouldn't say a Black person or a Jewish person or Italian person. But people are very comfortable talking about the poor, disadvantaged. And they say it like a throwaway comment where it feels like people are very, very comfortable making a comparison of what they have versus what someone else doesn't have.
Yes.
And I feel like it is one of the few points of discrimination and prejudice that we are all way too comfortable with. We don't want to go into that neighborhood because there, it's ghetto over there.
Yes, we hear it all the time.
To say, right?
Yes.
Or the other way, I'm not going over there because those are nothing but rich people, right? So you get it from both ends, and people are very comfortable. You would never say, well, I'm not going over there because white people live there. People would be like, are you really talking about that in 2020? Or I'm not going over there because Mexicans live there. But we will put a label of social status and social wealth on people so comfortably. And it baffles me. I have no idea what that is.
I have a few thoughts about that, but I won't. But you're absolutely right.
Tell me, what are your thoughts?
That's what we desire. I mean, honestly, we want when we're watching television, we're watching the internet, and we're being moved by this. They're telling us that this is the beautiful life. This is what the good life consists of. And everybody wants the good life, right? We all want to, live like the rich and the famous and live like our heroes. We want to keep up with the Kardashians. I think that used to be a television show. I don't know if it still is. So people are influenced by that more and more. And I think that's why we're starting to see some more like depression in the classroom. I don't know, like in my district, and I think it's districts across the board, socio-emotional learning is becoming a mainstay now. It's being discussed right up there with the academics because students are feeling depressed. They're sad in elementary. And I tell you, I had a student who had really followed me from middle school to high school. And I saw those traits. It's a problem. I
think you're totally right. I mean, can you imagine how much pressure kids feel and how much of that pressure is associated and connected with money? Mm-hmm. How you look. So buy the right clothes or get your hair done in the right place or, buy the right products or, where you live, who you hang out with, what your parents drive, how you get to school. Like so much of that is related to money. Mm-hmm. It's like we have this very dysfunctional relationship with money that we would never let our kids have an eating disorder the way we have a money and financial disorder. And I love that you're attacking that by talking to people, which is telling them how you can live like a millionaire and not run yourself into the ground. I love that.
And part of that millionaire lifestyle is to be healthy within. It's not just about having enough money to buy everything you want. Right. I mean, certainly you want to be secure, but it's also about inner security, inner wealth. Feeling good within, because honestly, I think that is at the core of everything. I think that's at the core of student learning. I think that's at the core of building wealth. It's your level of confidence and security and having, a good self-esteem. I think that is so valuable. And
you need to find your mic and drop it because that is exactly right. There's really, that's the whole thing, that insight is 100% accurate. We're wondering about what's wrong with kids and you said it. It's that they feel insecure and a lot of that insecurity comes from money. So you are.
Yes. Yeah. Well, Miss Carter. And this is why we do what we do. We love children.
Yes.
We love children and we want the best for them. And we're here to help them and to grow. And so, yeah, these are things that I love that we're having these discussions. This is great. Yeah.
I think a good team.
I think we do.
So that's our conversation for today. I hope you found some information that was interesting or a perspective that you hadn't thought of. If you like what you heard, or even if you have some feedback, put a comment in our comment section. Be sure to like our page and make sure that you subscribe so that you can hear when the next video comes out. Thanks so much again for joining us.